Hello everyone, this is Charlotte and this is Chatting While Painting. Excuse my music, it's a bit loud at the moment, I think. This is a podcast where I talk about random topics while I paint. Sometimes I go into tarot. In fact, I think I'll make that into a different playlist, I think. There's a disclaimer at the start of this podcast because I do talk about sensitive topics. I also swear a lot. Frankie's going to be in and out of the room. He's currently coming to grips with the routine. Frankie, my puppy. I don't know if you watched the other ones. Coming to grips with the routine that I'm on school holidays and it's a bit up in the air, so I'm trying to get him back into a routine. So he might want to, I don't know, jump up and whinge for a bit. I don't know. Hopefully he'll have a rest. He needs a nap. Right, the topic for today is stability. Right, yeah, no, I'm pretty good with stability, given that my North Node in my birth chart is stability based. I've got Taurus as a North Node, so my life purpose in this particular life, if you're into that woo-woo stuff, is to find a way to make my life very calm and stable. I think the best way you can do is probably just ditch people, but people bring chaos. But it's helpful in my way, the way I like doing things. I'm a bit of a hermit. But no, we're told from a very young age that you should aim for stability of some kind. It's a safer place to be. Generally, if you're, living in a chaotic way, it tends to have horrible endings. So you don't want to do that really, do you? Sorry, my music's just gone. There are lots of different ways to have stability, of course. Most of us think when it comes to stability, it tends to be based on financial stability, which has its ins and outs, to be honest. I've just finished a contract, for example, which had a greater financial stability for me as a teacher. It looked better on my resume than what I usually do. See, I'm usually like a relief teacher. I go where I'm needed. I'm the Mary Poppins of teaching. If somebody's sick or dead or dying, they say, hey, can you come in and do this for us? And I'm like, yeah, right. And I actually prefer it, to be honest, because there's a greater amount of freedom and I get to pick and choose where I want to go. So I don't mind doing that. When we first started teaching, we were told you should aim for the contracts because that's where the money is. And in a sense, yes, it is. But also there's a lot of stress and extra business that has to go on if you pick those contracts. So the question is, do you want financial stability or mental stability? As it was for me in the last contract. I chose self-care and my mental health over that one. Although there was a nice bonus of extra pay and stuff, so depends what your priority is. I would go myself for the long-term mental health stability because you're going to wreck yourself. What does it say? Check yourself before you wreck yourself. If you don't start looking at what you're doing, firsthand, rather than just buying onto the story, buying the snake oil, huffing the paint, or jumping on the bandwagon for the sake of that extra pay, basically selling your soul down the river, you might burn out later on, or sooner than you'd think. Some people might find relief teaching, which is essentially mercenary teaching, as more challenging because there's no guarantee of that steady income, and that might be stressful to them. I find the freedom associated with it a lot better for my mental health. Plus, I like to hunt, which is my preference. That's just one way to look at stability. There's a lot of other things you could look at on a social scale. You've got people who are not the best people to hang around for any kind of stability, to be honest, financial, mental, moral stability. So it's probably best to avoid them. I'm a bit of an introvert. A bit is an understatement. I thoroughly enjoy being alone. Just because the people are a hassle. So my stability comes from isolation. I prefer to be alone. I might be with, just one other person, which is, I don't mind that. I don't mind parallel play, as they call it, where maybe I'll be sitting here painting and they'll be doing something off in the corner. I don't mind that. Don't have to say a word to each other, but as long as we're in the room together, it's considered quality time. Some people would dispute that. But, you know, over the years I've found that I just don't do well myself in social settings. I have a very low threshold for bullshit. And I have a bit of a temper when it comes to it as well. And I do control it. I do hold on to my temper. I don't go berserk, unlike my parents, who raised me. But, you know, I cannot do small, meaningless chit-chat bullshit, or the pretending to be someone else for the sake of keeping the game and facade going. I find that's actually quite fucking irritating. It's like being lied to your face. So, you know, it's more stable for me to not be in those large populations of social networking and stuff like that. Some people thrive on it. I don't. I like being at home. And it's not because, you know, I'm a female or I belong in the home. It's just as a person, as an individual, I just prefer to be away from people. There's a lot of, I say, if we're going by sex and gender shit, which probably shouldn't, because it's generalizing and stereotyping. There's a lot of females that like the limelight and like the interaction. They'll go out doing stuff with their gal pals, or they'll go out clubbing or dressing ways to attract attention, or acting ways to attract attention. I don't know if it's the whole anti-demure debate shit. I don't particularly consider myself demure for being introverted. I just prefer to not do the outlandish weird shit. So some people do. Most of the time I sit there and think I'm acting like a tit anyway, so even if I did try and do that, it wouldn't come natural. So I think, honestly, if you're looking for stability, it should be something that comes natural to you as well. If you're not an extrovert, but you're forcing yourself to, you know, perform. Like they say, all right, yeah, so they say, all right, so Prince William. Now, I'm a monarchist. I am, but I'm a monarchist with standards. I don't like the fake shit. I mean, it's all fake, to be honest, because it's all PR stunts. But at the same time, if we're going to have a structure in place to guide the people, it should be for really good reasons, and you should be absolutely clean slate about the whole fucking thing, and transparent. You've got a lot of responsibility on your shoulders. You cannot fuck up, and you cannot just fuck up and say it's okay, I've got enough money to cover it up. That's the debate that goes on in my head when I say I'm a monarchist, but instead I'm a monarchist with standards. But you know, for a fact, you know that Prince William is an introvert. You know he is. It's so obvious. You can tell that he's not comfortable in public, and everything he's created as his social persona is a PR stunt. You can tell he doesn't like people. It's like, and no shame in it, to be honest. Unfortunately, he has to live a lifestyle which is also his job. And in that, I feel sorry for him. I think that would be a form of torture for me. And it is to a degree, because as a teacher, you still have to go out and perform. I love this song. Anyway, we have passed music quality. We're going into weird shit musicians these days. It annoys me. Or I could just be showing my age. But no, he's had to do it. And I would wonder if he's got any sense of authenticity in who he actually is at this point, because he's been performing his entire life and told that it's normal to do so. And that you should and you have to, because, you know, you're you, and it becomes not just a responsibility, or not a right, but a responsibility, which is kind of sad, because you never know if you're actually doing it for you or you're doing it for the crowds, which I find, again, another form of horrible torture. So, sorry, Will. Kind of feel sorry for you there. Come to my house, we'll eat pizza and watch movies. You don't have to do shit. I'm not going to ask you to do shit. But, you know, I would find that destabilizing in itself, because it's that conflicting mindset of, sorry, my stutter's kicking in, of being a natural introvert and then having to perform and force yourself into these circumstances where it is painful to do so. Like if you've got anything like me, I've got ASD. I am ASD. I don't give a shit. I don't think it's held me back this far. In fact, it's bolstered a lot of things I've done, because, you know, things like hyperfocus and stuff like that. But one of the things I do have is I can't answer phone calls because it makes me scream internally. Now, this seems unrealistic. It seems unreasonable, because I know in my head logically nothing's going to happen if I do answer a phone call. But on the inside it hurts to talk on the phone, and as soon as I hang up the phone, I swear. So, and I hate doing it, and I don't know how many other people are out there. I mean, you know, you got the guy that invented the phone thinking this is some kind of breakthrough for human good. But in reality, it makes a shit ton of people scream on the inside, and I don't know why. I think it's because we can't connect physically with the message we're trying to convey just verbally. And human communication is a mixed signal thing. It's not just a case of saying something and understanding what you're talking about. Sometimes, like Italians, you've got gestures, you've got Samoans and Maoris have got like eye gestures as well. You can tell when they're pissed off, you can tell when they're giving you side eye and stuff like that. A lot of their culture is physical as well as verbal. So as human beings, we've got a lot of extra communication in our body language as well as the verbal. We don't just hear, we see as well, and so that gives it extra meaning. I think that's what causes the screaming on the inside, because I'm looking for the physical meaning behind, because I'm an energy reader anyway. I'm looking for the physical reading which justifies the words I'm hearing. And when they get separated, I feel like I'm half there and half not. You know, I don't know if I confirm what you said, sort of thing. Or if, you know, and then you're second guessing yourself. It's like, did I actually get across the message I wanted to? And that's part of the social anxiety, the ASD as well. It's like you're worried if this person is going to misconstrue what you said, even though you said absolutely succinctly with the language and shit over the phone. But you're like, are you going to misinterpret it? I don't know. Am I going to be wrong about something? I don't know. And you know, it plagues you. It makes you overthink as well. So that's why I hate phone calls. So boys who ever want to date me, I'm giving you permission not to call. Just send memes. You know, I don't want to. I got nothing to say really that I couldn't say in person. But you know, that's part of it. So going off on a tangent. Stability, so mental stability counts. I find this interesting in political sense. Stability, when we come into times of war or poverty or anything like that, people tend to aim for more conservative views, assuming that those conservative views will promote stability. Not necessarily. You think about it, what's going on in World War II, or what went on in World War II, is everybody turned to a more conservative view of how things should be. The morality seemingly increased because we had to fight for this greater good. And the familiar of the traditional roles sent people back into adopting codes of ethics were not genuinely what they felt, but they felt they were right at the time. That is to say, you know, still had women coming out of the home to go and provide for the family and work. But it was a lot of pulling together, and resources became more conservative. You started saving your resources and things like that, rather than just being liberal and doing whatever you want. There was a fight for a greater good, seemingly, which is associated with conservatism. Even though things like rights for, you know, ethnicities and sexes actually came out of liberalism. In times of strife and trouble, people tend to look for the perceived continuity of conservatism. Whether it's actually there or not, you're just buying a bandwagon, I don't know. But people panic and they go, this doesn't feel like, it's like too much freedom is bad freedom, and they associate liberalism with freedom. And so they head for the less freedom which is the constrictive conservatism, and assume that it's going to be the safer option because fear of the unknown and what could happen with too much freedom or liberalism. It's interesting to watch, and kind of worrying to watch in America right now, to be honest. Because they tend to forget that with conservatism also comes the promotion of things like war, and the concept of things like conscription and duty, where a lot of people who are deemed to be not patriotic if they don't want to go and fight and die for someone else's ideologies. Which is why they didn't like the hippies in Vietnam era. Because even though these hippies were fighting for peace, they didn't want war. They didn't want war on anyone. They didn't want anyone fighting anyone. They were sick of it. And to be honest, a lot of people are sick of it now. It was deemed communist or unpatriotic to go and fight and die for someone else's idea of what freedom should be. So basically it was freedom fighting freedom, which is why you saw a lot of hippies in that either get shat on significantly socially, and even imprisoned as conscientious objectors. But at the same time, this is why America confuses me. It's freedom for the sake of exploiting someone else's sense of freedom, It's like you only got freedom if I say you've got freedom, which is a bit hypocritical, really. They seem to fail to understand that freedom also needs responsibility, to ensure that you're not harming other people or restricting other people, which is an interesting paradox. Which is why I'm glad I'm not living in America. It's too confusing to exist there. What are you talking about? Freedom of speech, freedom of action usually impedes on someone else's freedom. One of the best analogies I saw the other day, and I think it was just on a TikTok or something like that, I watch a lot of weird crap, was if you're holding a gun, the police are allowed to shoot you. Now that completely negates your right to bear arms, doesn't it? You've got an amendment, but if you're holding a gun, they'll shoot first. You don't think that's weird? And then you say, fuck the police, and you're sitting there going, where does the line get drawn? I mean, honestly, in Australia, I don't think the police really hold guns. I know they have stun guns, they have batons, but, they don't shoot on sight. Do you know how much paperwork goes into shooting on sight? It's a bit different. Plus, there's very strong gun laws in this country where no one's got a gun unless they've got it illegally or for, like farm hunting purposes. And even then, it's very fucking policed. Because we had that massacre in years ago. Oh God, I can't remember, but it was over east. But it was some 18-year-old kid, surfy dude, who went on a rampage in some surfy sort of village thing. The kind of kid you look at and go, are you sure you want to do this? But he wasn't all there. And from that, and it's a real story, you could Google it, I just cannot for the sake of me remember the name of it. Port Arthur Massacre. After that, they jumped on the use of guns and the freedom of people using guns so hard that everybody handed them in. They said, this is bad, everyone's getting hurt. It would be better if we just handed them in and started introducing proper licenses and restrictions for gun control and things like that. And to be honest, anything like it happening since has been rare, which I find interesting, which seems to support more people's freedoms, as far as I can see, than anyone having the right to bear arms. Excuse me, I need to go grab tissues. So, and I don't know much about the American legal system or their the Constitution and stuff. Just find some things that seem to contradict each other that don't make sense, and I go, that's a weird anomaly. We should get rid of that. So it just seems to be harming more people. Don't you think? But, you know, they're not going to listen to me. I'm a nobody. I don't mind. I don't mind being a nobody. I just think I just reserve the right to eat popcorn and laugh on the sidelines while you do it. Don't even get me started on their education system. So it seems political stability, even then, needs to be judged, you know, with a grain of salt, and to see which works out best for the people. What is perceived to be stable in some regards, not necessarily stable on the whole. I find it very odd. Financial stability is probably one of the hardest things we will encounter, besides mental stability. You can't control shit that happens like that. But what am I going to do here? Yes, I agree. Bearing in mind we're going through a cost of living crisis, this all started with the Ukrainian. Not Ukraine started it, but honestly, it started with Wuhan. Then the COVID shit exacerbated the petrol. That's loud as shit. Exacerbated by the petrol crisis, and then all kinds of shit, like in each individual country, like Brexit happening. All kinds of things went down. So everybody right now, regardless of where you are, if you're not a celebrity or someone already pre-rich, is going through a cost of living crisis. And we're finding it's harder and harder to maintain a certain way of cost of living, certain way of living, quality of living, that's the one. I'm finding myself, even me, I don't spend a lot of money, but I do need to start adapting to the circumstances in which I found myself. I've just come through a 2-year Spartan project, which I initiated mainly because I was facing eviction on my birthday, and that pissed me off the most. It was a shit birthday present. But I was living with my ex-boyfriend at the time, and he deemed it not appropriate to tell me that we were getting evicted, and I think that just added fuel to the fire at this point. And so I think I started with like something 7,000 in savings, if I had that, you know, because I was putting some aside, but I wasn't really serious about it. By the time I finished my Spartan project, I had 100,000 in 2 years, and that was because I'd borrowed 40 from my parents, which I am currently paying back. I was very fucking lucky in those circumstances. Not everybody gets that privilege to be able to say, I want to get a house now, rather than fight, you know, the rising rent, which was getting fucking out of hand, and it probably still is, actually. I was looking at the sites for real estate the other day. But in those 2 years where I took my finances deathly serious at times, I managed to make great leaps and bounds by just adapting and thinking outside the box and trying to remember ways in which, because I grew up in poverty, ways in which we had adapted to not having any money as kids. I had an okay wage. I'm not going to brag about it. It was a teacher's wage. You can imagine what that is. And I'm single, so I didn't have any dependents. So I was... got paid again. I'm not going there, is it? Yeah, I was. Okay. See, the universe provides. No one believes me. They're all like, oh, it's woo-woo. It's like, I don't know, dude. You put some work in, she'll hand you it. But I had adapted my practices to stop wasting. And not only had I done that by going through the Spartan thing, I had practiced, like I was tweaking even like what I was doing as a kid with my parents further, because I wanted to see how much I could shred it down to just not spending. And I'm still doing it now, actually, to be honest, but I'm saving for something else now. The next step of my planning. I fucking love plans. But, you know, it was exciting and I loved it. And people would look at you like you're fucking crazy, but it's because they can't perceive the changes that would need to occur in order to survive and promote stability in circumstances where you have nothing. We get so accustomed to convenience, and for some, convenience is seen as stability. You can walk into a shop and just buy a $6 cup of coffee and think nothing of it, and you'll think, oh, I'm stable. And you sit there and think, if I go to a 7-Eleven, I can get the same size cup of coffee for $3, half the price. If you use your brain a bit, you could get 2, you could make that go further. So it's that adaptability that people see as unstable because it's different and it's a bit weird. I mean, for example, I'm using dishwashing liquid as body liquid. So I find it fascinating. And it is a bit odd. I've got the $1.49 Shine dishwashing liquid, which smells lemony fresh. And I put it in an old body wash pump bottle. And I find it funny as fuck, because I was a fan of Mr. Bean growing up, you know, the old school Mr. Bean, not the cartoon one. The old school Mr. Bean was using like proper engineering brain power to figure out problems. So he was looking outside the box, and I fucking loved Rowan Atkinson for that when I was growing up, plus I got a stutter. And I think he also had a stutter or something, so I don't know, maybe it was relatable that way. But in every episode, he showed different ways to work around problems rather than just taking it face on and saying, oh, I can't do this because this isn't exactly how I want it to be. He showed us as kids, consciously or subconsciously, how to adapt to these fucked up scenarios, which I fucking loved. I can't think of any other child program we had at the time that was teaching us how to survive and to think outside the box. It was awesome. I loved it. Sorry, my music's gone funny. So, you know, I was taking things like that. That was the growth mindset I had at the time when I'm sitting there thinking, okay, so this is what we did as kids. How can I do it better? How can I tweak it so that it's even easier, so that I save even more money? And I became a quick fan of, what's that? Besides the coupon things that they have in America. You know, when they have the big coupons, they have like wads of these coupons, they take it to a shop and they say, I want all my groceries free. And you sit there and think, how is that legal? I got fascinated by those and going, why don't we have that here? And that would be perfect for like if you wanted to collect all the goods and sort of do all the couponing and then give it to charity. If you wanted to give it to homeless people who have no money whatsoever. I mean, what are you going to do with 50,000 bottles of shampoo? It's just like, and you still get more coupons, you still get more money. So it's like, it makes sense to do that and then donate it to like a homeless shelter or something like that. So I hope someone does that. But that form of stability for me, it was stability because it was thinking outside the box for 2 years minimum. I'm still going. And finding new ways of doing things. That was what I found stable. What I found unstable was relying on the traditional methods, which got us nowhere really, and the excessive spending, the not thinking ahead, not planning ahead, the panicking at the end of the month because you've just had a magic bill turn up that hates you out of nowhere, seemingly, much like high school bullies. So, you know, you bastard. I'm going to punch you in the face financially. I mean, if a bully's going to punch you, you want to know where it's coming from, right? And when. So, see the bills as bullies, and then you can sort of fight them in advance. That's a weird analogy. But, you know, it was helpful to know where they're coming from, and I found the regular thinking ahead and strategizing is more stable than just assuming that you all got to be okay. And some might say it's a trauma response, and I'd say if it is, it's a bloody good one. I've benefited ever since. I cannot complain. So, you know, people complain that they're not feeling stable enough. It's like, sometimes it's a case of just changing your mindset and approach. When we saw the COVID go down and everybody was in lockdown, I was watching what everyone was doing with their spare time, and people lost jobs and things like that, so I was watching that as well. I'm sitting there going, how are they adapting to these new circumstances? And human adaptation is one of the most fascinating things you can watch. Oh, my music goes up and down and up and down. When the electricity started getting more expensive and things like that, I started watching how people were adapting to that. They were buying generators, they were using candles. I used candles for a long time. I don't know how cost effective it was, but I found, like recently, I set up a direct debit of $30 a fortnight into my Synergy account, which is electricity. And the government, I think it was on the 3rd of December, sent out a booster because they assumed everyone would be, using their aircon and stuff like that. No, I don't use my aircon. I'm old school. I don't use aircon. I have it. I don't like it. I've got pictures of Legionnaires, Jazidi's coming out and just saying, I'm good. I'll open a window. Or I use a fan. But that's because I read weird books when I was a kid about diseases. But I don't tend to have expensive practices. So when I checked on my last electricity account, I was actually in credit about $600. And I thought I could probably pause those direct debits for a while then and just, ride out the credit. Because I don't really need it, and I can divert that $30 a fortnight to somewhere else for a while. So I suspended that direct debit until I think March 1st or something like that, just to run down that account. Otherwise, I wouldn't have any cash in hand for what I need to do nowadays. So that adaptability is what promotes stability. You need to be able to survive. You need to be able to adapt to your circumstances. Isn't it the Canadian Army or something like that? Adapt, improvise, overcome, something like that. Google it. I love that guy. I love those guys. Mounties? Was it the Mounties? I don't know. But that promotes stability. It's sitting there on your ass, not wanting to think about what's happening, the context, and how you can fix things. That's promoting instability. Do not become accustomed to how things are when things change so fucking fast. If you're growing up in poverty, you get used to adapting to things because it's in a constant state of loss or breaking stuff, or someone nicks something that you wanted. You just get used to it. They say it's survival mode. You shouldn't be living in survival mode. It's like, I don't think you should forget the skills you ever made in survival mode. You might not need them up front, but eventually it's a good skill set to have, and it does promote stability. Mental stability, for example, is also a very good thing to aim for, although it's never what you think it is. You think you're stable, but you never know. I've been to a psych and they sit there and they talk to you. That's one thing that I found fucking hilarious. Jesus. In triage, which is the introductory appointment to going and seeing a psych, they will ask you, are you suicidal? And if you say no, they let you leave the room. They do not ask you if you are homicidal. I'm sitting there, I'm out of here. I found that really weird. I'm going, shouldn't you double check that they don't go the other way as well? It's like, no. As long as you're not going to harm yourself, you go out the door. What the fuck? I found that weird. And it was only something that occurred to me after I left the appointment. I'm going, hang on. So how many homicidal people are wandering around after these counselling appointments, just undiagnosed psychopaths? Oh my God, that was weird. It was weird. Do you harm yourself? Well, not recently. Oh, that's okay then. But I have had a history of it. Jesus. This template they're trying to apply to everyone is fucking weird. I tried to commit suicide when I was 17. If you've listened to my death podcast, you'll know that I've had some experiences with it. But would I do it now? No. I have no inclination towards that at all, or in any kind of way. I'm not internalized that way anymore. I don't feel like I'm in any sense defeatable or defeated, where I would go, oh fuck it, I might as well top myself, which is not something to joke about realistically, but it does accurately describe where my brain is right now. I don't, because I've also developed that mindset where everything's fucking fixable. Most things are fixable. So even if it feels like insurmountable, if you break it down into the smaller parts and the chunking, usually it is fixable. It's just the overthinking about it that makes it feel insurmountable. You see a mountain, you think, I've got to break that down with a hammer. The hammer's tiny. What am I going to do? You start with a rock. And then you pick up another rock and you break that one down and you keep it going and you just keep going and eventually you wear it down. Which is very much yin energy, the eventual wearing down of a problem, as opposed to yang, which is blow it up and hope for the best. Not always the best, considering you don't know where the bits are going to blow up to. I wouldn't suggest. Not always. You know what's always going to happen. Too much energy buggers it up. Sometimes you've got to take the soft approach. Wear it down rather than just blow it up. But no, it's an idea, really, isn't it? What other forms of stability are there? Body image. Body image. I'm anorexic. It comes and goes these days. It's not completely gone. And I do go through days where I just feel like absolute shit. And I'm just like, I could just not eat. And it'll fix everything. And you sit there and think, no, fuck off. Because your organs shut down nearly last time. And it doesn't fix anything. It actually is a mental issue. So you'll find that when I'm stressed, I tend to whittle away to fuck all. And I need to force myself to eat. Now that's the problem I faced when I got divorced and I separated. I started starving myself again, which is not a good way to deal with it. But I was just so craving some form of control and foundation or something I could have an effect on that I started to feel like I could do that. So I had to start forcing myself to do things like eating, which sounds stupid because most people will be faced with the thing of how do I stop eating? It's a weird switch of the mind. And it is a form of self-abuse on both sides of the coin, really. Overeating and undereating are both abuse to the bodily organs and all kinds of business. It'll ruin your life if you let it, especially when your limbs are having to cut off from diabetes. My mum currently takes diabetic medication because she did not look after her body as well as it could. It's type 2, so it was affected by lifestyle choices rather than type 1, which is completely natural and you couldn't avoid if you tried, if you do have it. But when it comes to understanding your body image, now I'm 40 in May. 3rd of May I'm going to be 40. Compared to my counterparts, I know that I don't look that bad. And I do somewhat, for the most part, look after myself. I haven't been doing my weights as I should. But I haven't been eating shit, so I'm alright. I've been on a sugar ban for, what's the date today? Like 12 days? And it's just stabilized my moods, so I haven't felt particularly shitty, which could send me off on a tangent of wanting to binge or anything like that, like I used to have. It's weird, I had anorexia when I was 16, 17, but then I had like the opposite, binge eating, when I was going out with my now ex-husband, which is odd. It was like I was trying to make up for time. So when I was in my mid-20s, and if anyone's looked at my Facebook and you looked at the old photos of me in my mid-20s, you'll see that I got quite squidgy. Not helped by my ex-husband, who was a personal trainer, who was a bit of an asshole as well. I fucking hate burpees and mountain climbers. I do, and I will never do them again. And running, fuck that. Fuck it all. I found when I left him, even though I did sign up to the gym and yoga and Pilates, I had to find ways that I was comfortable with doing, which would stop me undereating at that time. But, you know, that was the thing. It's like I felt maybe consciously or subconsciously that he partly left me because I got big. I got big. I got very big. Bearing in mind I'm 5'4", I was chubby more than anything. I didn't have a particular figure. I was just soft. Some people like that. I don't particularly mind it in guys, but you know, because he was a personal trainer, he had put the pressure on, and it had been a means to keep me under thumb and in control and make me feel like shit, so I would stay, and you know, led to a whole clusterfuck of, I can't fucking stand you as a personal trainer. I don't even like that body type of guys anymore. And it was unstable for me to stay in the mindset that I wasn't good enough because I was slightly chubby. So I did something about it. I mean, I was a little bit petty because I'm like, I know you want me to stay in this mindset where I stay chubby because it makes you look like the better person because you're a vain prick. But I went against it and I thought, how can I make myself better? Because I need to mentally make myself better. I can't go anorexic like I did when I was 17. I don't want to stay chubby because I felt like shit. I felt like it was one of the reasons he had rejected me. And I'm sitting there thinking, it might have been, it might not have been. I mean, he rejected me because he wanted an open marriage. And I'm like, that was one of the reasons. Did he want an open marriage because the person he wanted was actually better looking? I mean, we have so many things going through our head when we got low self-esteem. You sit there and thinking, am I just not good enough for him because I don't look the right way? And it was one of the things he played on in the marriage as well, because it was easy to do and kept me in line. The fact that I already had anxious attachment was not a stable way of looking at things in any kind of relationship, because you're willing to do just about damn near anything to keep this person around. And I'm glad I grew out of that when I left the prick, because I realized as an individual, I'm actually quite valuable. I'm not absolutely fantastic. I don't have millions of dollars or giant fake boobs and stuff like that. But as a human being, I'm all right. I'm not weird in a bad way, in a violent, horrible way. It would be odd, but it's interesting odd. But all the quirks and things that I would show in the relationship, like natural quirks, he would sort of infantilize. He would put it down to, oh, she's just a stupid girl sort of thing. So I'll play on it and I'll break her self-esteem and I'll make her feel like shit. And that was destabilizing, because you sit there and think maybe he's right, and maybe that's why he had to leave, because I wasn't good enough. You should never let someone do that to you. But having said that, removing yourself from this horrible experience of this person, you do tend to get to know yourself, and you can become whatever you fucking want to be in the end. Whatever you want to look like. Do you want to be healthy? Do you want to be morbidly obese? I don't know. But it comes to be your own input that will either create stability or instability in those circumstances. If no one's around to tell you what to do, it's definitely going to be on you as to whether you succeed or fail in your lifestyle choices. And that's how you promote accountability as well. Now, I was sitting there feeling not good enough when I was married. And that's partially why I stayed as well, because I didn't think I could get better. I didn't get better, I just found myself. I didn't get better. The boyfriend that came after him was total tit too. But I decided that my self-worth and my peace was better than putting up with another human being's bullshit, which was proven in the situationship that came after my ex-husband. I stood up for myself, I recognized my worth, and I said, it is more stable for me to lean on my abilities and my values and what I know to be good for me than it is to take up someone else's and say this will do, because then at least I can say I've got someone. It's a bit like, that's another thing. You ever watch that movie Grease, where Sandra Dee's like the good girl? She's all like clean cut and shit. She's clean eating. She doesn't drink and smoke and all that shit. And everyone's like, oh my god, she's so gross because she's so clean cut and shit like that. She's got like a body that any gym fanatic would kill for. It's all these good things, but it was seen as bad at the time. And at the end of the movie, she takes up smoking, starts acting like a slut. And you sit there and think, all to fit in with this guy who has no job, who probably lives with his parents, who drives a car supplied by I would assume, high school or college that he goes to. It's not even his car. No money, no job. You sit there and think, you gave all this up and took up smoking for some douchebag because you wanted to fit in with the popular kids. I'm going, this doesn't feel stable to me. So, I wouldn't bother looking towards something. If you know something's not going to work out right, regardless of how many people are ascribed to it, if it's not going to work for you, then don't fucking bother. And we all want, a large chunk of us want to feel like we belong. There is a whole movement in Australia, the Act, Commit, Belong movement. which is all to do with mental health and stuff. And they say, you know, you need to get out there and meet people and make friends and act together and commit to something and belong together. It's all about following some kind of I want to say individual, but it's not. Some kind of identity as a collective, as a team. I don't have that. I don't do teams. I don't like them. I find it irritating. But it's meant to help you feel like you've got some sense of worth. Now that could go very, very well if you were working for some kind of very fancy football team or something like that, or a charity or something like that working together. It could go very, very wrong if you want to join some kind of bikie club where you're selling drugs. So swings and roundabouts, you've got to look at what the people are actually doing, and is it going to promote stability in my life, or am I potentially taking on the mantle of someone else's bullshit in order to say I belong to something? Which is why I'm not particularly social in myself. I'm just that right mix of weird that nothing seems to click with the other people. I can mimic what they do, I can have a look and say, oh, that sounds like fun. Do I actually become like them? No. And I never have. Funny enough, I was a goth at uni. I was a goth. Can you imagine? Black hair, black eyeliner, or black clothes and all that. And you know how they're supposed to be all like mean and stuff. I was a terrible goth. I was never a goth. I wore the uniform. I did not act as a goth would. I didn't do anything like it. I didn't have the disposition to be this depressive fucking person. This dark and ominous and brooding shit. I just didn't have it. I am not a black cat, as they say. I'm more like some kind of weird fucking unicorn that runs across the stage and burns shit. You know, it's I don't have the cool, I say cool, but it just comes across as bitch persona. You know how you got those girls that are like standoffish and mean and... Oh, there's that one in The Office who... Is it The Office? I don't know. But she's got like a really nasty persona. And she might have gone through some genuine trauma. But I just don't see the point of... And I have gone through some trauma. I just don't see the point of passing it on. You know? It doesn't help anything to be an asshole. So that's one of the reasons I think I failed as a goth. That and I didn't smoke. Don't like drinking. Not particularly dark or ominous. Besides that, before that, I was a surfy chick. So stark contrast. It's very weird to go from the beach to the pub and not understand what's going on and not speak English. But we try new things, don't we? Grew out a bit. I'm like, this is fun. I like some of the artwork and you know, like some of the anime and stuff and some of the stories, and I can understand somewhat akin to the darkness that's in all of us, but you know, my darkness tends to be humor based, so it's not really I'm gonna hurt people thing kind of way. I'm kind of like, I'm gonna make jokes about my own trauma because it's funny and I like it and lots of people will laugh. So you know, I sucked as a goth. I don't mind. I'm more witchy anyway. Some things will overlap. You find parts of yourselves when you start joining these groups. You'll find what parts of you resonate, what parts don't, and the parts that don't, you tend to lose or you tend to leave. So that, you know, you've got to constantly regulate your own stability, I guess, in that way, socially. If you're in a group and they're trying to get you to do shit that you know is harmful to you or you know is not going to be good for you long term, obviously we've all been lectured on what peer pressure is. It's probably time to start reassessing and leave. Stability. I don't know. You could say it's some kind of a trauma response as well in a psychological sense. I mean, if you've grown up in poverty or you've lived in a chaos era, or like every millennial ever, we are living in the chaos era. It started with Harambe. You could argue that you crave stability, but I don't know if any of us have really attained it yet as we know it, what we've been conditioned to believe stability is. It's that sort of house, white picket fence, 9 to 5 job, and you know, the worst problem you've got is that you hate your job because people are annoying, not because you can't make ends meet, because you've got 3 jobs and still paying a horrible rent and bills. I don't think any of us particularly have, in a general sense, have attained stability in that sense, and that's what pisses most people off of my generation. But in some sense, of course, you have to find your own version of stability. And it's that adaptability. It's assuming that everybody should be following a cookie cutter concept of what reality should be, and it's just not true. Not everyone's got the same pathway, not everyone's got the same steps. Some people are made to do the 9 to 5, have the babies, get married, not in that order because apparently it's wrong. It's not wrong, babies happen. You know, get the house and do all the extra crap, the generic shit that you sit there and think, that sounds incredibly boring. Like, to me, the idea of having kids sounds horrible. I have a dog. I have a puppy. It's going to be a puppy till he's 1.5 years, apparently. I've looked at the research. But I'm finding it strenuous to put up with him at times, wherever he is now. And he's pretty self-sufficient. I think he's staring at the door. He might be under the bed, actually. And it's the case of, I've walked a particular type of path in my life which has set me up for certain ways of doing things and thinking, which are conflicting with certain things that he needs, or maybe a child would need. And so I know either I have to make a change and adapt and sort out my own shit, which I partially am doing. I am. I'm glad I don't have kids, because it would be a hell of a lot more effort to have to deal with that. And I'm grateful for that, actually, because I know I've got mental issues. Or I could just act the same way my parents did, lose my shit and just fuck up someone else for the next generation, or something else for this next generation. Now this time, with this puppy, I'm older than I am with my first puppy I had, which my ex-husband gave away. I have more experience in dealing with situations which will require more patience. I can put things in play and routines, so I know what needs to happen, which could result in a more stable routine and stuff like that for the animal, for the dog. I've had to adapt to that. Some people could just give up and say, fuck it, and give the dog away. I'm trying to get used to the idea. But for me, I know that the puppy alone is enough for me. I don't foresee myself getting another puppy afterwards, because I've only had him 6 months, and already I'm sitting there thinking, I miss being able to just travel. I miss being able to get up and go. And this isn't even, like a human baby. I think it would be significantly compounded had I chosen to have kids, or if my original kids had survived. I don't know if you've listened to the other podcast, but I had 2 miscarriages when I was 21 and 23 years old. They would be late teenagers now. Holy shit. I cannot imagine myself as that kind of a mum. Which in a sense, it was a curse and a blessing. It's a double-edged sword. But you live with what you got. But I can't imagine myself doing that at such a young age, having to deal with the mental issues which I already had at the time, to be honest, given where I was raised and the circumstances I was raised in, and having to create a stable environment for kids that I didn't actually want. In truth, they were accidents. I was on the pill. They were accidents. When I was with my now ex-husband, I was on the pill. This was before his vasectomy. And it's only because of the second one that we really started looking at vasectomies, because the pill's not fucking working. But it would have been completely crazy to just jump in and assume that I would be okay raising kids, even if they are my own, whilst also trying to work in an already stressful job. and all the extra shit bits that go with it. It's you have to understand that you've all got your own different version of what stable is, and for some reason people with kids cannot understand why someone like me would opt out of not, not wanting kids. It's like, oh my god, you got to get married and have kids. Like, no, you've got to, because it gives you something to do. I don't want to because I actually acknowledge I've got issues and I don't want to pass that on. Partly, and partly because I know it would be a great strain and I don't think I could do justice to it. And I feel my freedom, man. I don't want to be tied down to that kind of a lifestyle. Some people like it. And I do have a very closeted version of what my life is. I know I'm not going to go bungee jumping or anything weird like that anytime soon. It's a very quiet, calm existence. And I like it that way. And if you introduce a kid or a baby to it, it's going to make it hell. So I don't. Keep it at work. That's all I need to do. And even then I need to get paid for it and choose where I go with that. That's the negotiation I've made with myself. So my version of stability is completely different from someone who actually wants a big family or wants the stay-at-home mum stuff going on, or stay-at-home dad stuff. To me, it would feel cripplingly horrible, because they're just there. Like this one, there he is. Every time I get this one, he's gorgeous. I love him, but I'm not used to the attention. He follows me around. And I'm not used to the attention. I'm used to being ignored. And so when I get up to go to the toilet or I go to make a coffee or something, he'll bounce around like we're going on some top secret mission. And I'll be sitting there begging him, just go and sit down, sort of thing. I'm not used to this much attention. What do you want? And he'll sit there and stare at you. And then you're like, what? And then he sits there and barks at you. It's like, oh, because I speak that language. So it's been an eye-opening experience. At least if they were human kids, you might understand the language. So I think, yes, it's a learning curve, but at the same time, it's like, would I do it again? No. I'm good. I'm looking forward to traveling in my 50s. You sit there and thinking, and it's horrible, really, because I wanted a puppy for a long time. You sit there and think, how long do dogs live for? Because I can't bring myself to give it away, because that would be absolutely cruel. But at the same time, I'm like, I just know I don't want another one after that. And I suppose some parents, if they're going to be honest, would think the same way. We all feel like we're maybe bought into a dream that was slightly an illusion. And you feel that it's a little bit more hard work than you thought it was. And so the inclination is to think, do I want to do this? And so some don't, and some do, and some do it and then do it badly, and some do it and do it well. It's a bit hit and miss at times. But the best thing you can do is say, before you even begin these fucking shenanigans, do I have a stable view of this? Is this something I could see myself doing? Because kids are living a lot longer than dogs. I did not assess how long a dog would live before I did this. I went, I'm a puppy. I'm going to get a puppy. I'm going to be able to take it for walks and do stuff. And then you actually sit there and think, it actually lives for 15 years. You sit there and think, okay, let's hope it just grows out of this weird shit. The reality of the situation dawns on you. Start reassessing your life decisions. You're like, okay. Yeah, are you going to do this again? No. I question people who have had kids who regret having kids slightly. And there's no shame in that. We don't know what it is until we get there. You can't be a bad person for saying, this isn't what I thought it would be, and I kind of regret my purchase. I question why they suddenly jump on the bandwagon to have another one. It's like you've forgotten what the first one was like. Or you're going on the assumption, maybe the first one was good, and then you're going on the assumption that the second one will be good. It's an interesting thing. I'm sitting there thinking, I think for the most part I lucked out with this puppy. But I don't think even then, I don't think I'd do it again. I want to be able to just get on a plane and go travel on holiday without worrying who's looking after my dog. And I would obsess the whole fucking time, because I'd be like, I don't know who's looking after. I don't know how they're treating it. I don't know. I was slightly traumatized by my own experiences in the past, that I don't trust people to look after my animals, my shit, my people, you know. So I wouldn't be able to even enjoy my holiday if I put him in a kettle, or I left him with my brother, for example. You know, it's like I have trouble detaching. So whilst I'm okay with what we're doing now for the most part, would I do it again? No, because I miss my freedom. I've still got 14 years on average to go. So what I'm going to do now, and this is all theory, whilst he's with me and I can't just get on a plane and go, I'm going to start really establishing my, put the template in for the rest of my retirement, shall we say, in a financial sense. Really bear down on what I need to do to put the structures in place to ensure that I can maybe retire early or something like that. Because I know I'm locked in with this. I'm locked in with this damn kid. And it restricts my movement. And to some degree I get insight into why my mum lost her shit and and her mum lost her shit, because, you know, gypsy heritage. I do feel tied down. And I shouldn't, because people are like, oh, it's just a dog. I'm going, it's not just a dog. It's not just a dog. I'm too emotionally attached to it now. I can't just give it away because I'm bored of it. But I'm going to use this time to actually start really structuring what I want to do with my life. And you know, eventually, even though it sounds horrible, he will pass through onto that rainbow bridge and I'll be able to gain my freedom back that way. It sounds horrible, doesn't it? It's like, you love your dog, but at the same time, realistically, I'm tired and you won't let me sleep because you keep waking up at 4. It's giving me the shits. I'm a realist. I like to look at things realistically. I was like, yes, it's cute, it's fluffy. What's the real side of things? It's painful. You're all like, you're a bitch. I'm like, no, I'm a realist. I'm tired. Fucker won't let me sleep. And it's constantly peeing. It constantly needs to go out. But no, it's not bad. Anyway, I'm going to have to stop it there because we just passed an hour, I think. I'm going to ask you to have a great day. Reassess what you view as stable. Not everyone's got the same definition of what stable should be. There's nothing wrong with reaching stability, but bear in mind, much like perfection, it can be a myth. Not everyone's got the same views. Not everyone's got the same chances. Try and find a happy medium, things that you can live with. Otherwise you are gonna be chasing that fucking white dragon. Wait, is that a cocaine reference? You're gonna be never-ending story. That white dragon off into the distance, you're never gonna catch it. No, that could be actually a cocaine thing. I've got to stop watching South Park. Never catch it. Find your own version of what happiness is, to be honest. Reassess where you are. Bear in mind there are some things you might have signed up to that you can't really escape from. Kids is one of them. Some people have different views on animals. I have a very committed view on animals. I bought a puppy. This is my responsibility. I will see it out. I will not just give it away. I take it as a view as I would have taken a child. And luckily my puppy has more independence compared to a child of his age, which is only 9 months. So you need to look at this realistically, and the things he's doing now he will outgrow. So it's not an annoyance for long. I just need to keep that in mind. But take it easy. Change what you can, and if you can't, try and find a way to adapt to it in a way that isn't going to be detrimental to your health, your mental health, your life. Bearing in mind everything's temporary. And oh, that just clicked my back. That's nice. Take it easy, and I will see you hopefully in the next podcast, hopefully without a stutter.